The station clock rolled over to 3:58 without ceremony. It didn't tick. It didn't chime. It simply changed the way most things did out here, quietly without asking anyone to notice. Lieutenant Eris then noticed anyway. He had been staring at the outer scan grid for the last 5 hours and 42 minutes, which meant he had started noticing things that didn't matter. Time stamps. Minor fluctuations in background radiation. The faint hum in the console that shifted pitch every few minutes like it was thinking about becoming a different sound and then deciding not to. This was normal. Border Station K-17 did not exist in a place where interesting things happened. It existed between places where interesting things had already happened or might happen later, which meant its entire purpose was to sit in the middle of nothing and confirm that nothing continued to be nothing. Eris was good at that. He was 23 years old, recently transferred from orbital logistics where the most dangerous event he had recorded was a docking delay caused by a cargo pilot who misread a guidance vector and had to circle twice before aligning correctly. He had written a 3-page report on that incident. His supervisor had told him the report was thorough. His supervisor had also told him it did not need to be 3 pages. Eris had filed it anyway. He believed in doing things properly, even when properly was more than necessary. Especially then. The scan grid in front of him stretched across 12 monitored sectors, each one empty in the particular way that deep space was empty, not truly devoid of matter, but lacking anything that cared whether it was being observed. There were stars, of course. Distant ones. Cold ones. Light that had started its journey before Eris was born and would continue long after his shift ended. There was debris, occasionally. Microscopic fragments drifting through trajectories so slow they barely counted as movement. There was background noise. There was always background noise. And there was protocol. Protocol said that every anomaly, no matter how small, was to be logged, verified, and categorized according to the station's classification system, which currently contained 2.8 million entries and had not needed a new one in 11 years. Eris found that reassuring. He adjusted slightly in his chair, straightening his posture even though no one was watching. The bridge was running on night rotation, which meant a skeleton crew and minimal conversation. 2 stations behind him, Communications Officer Lyra had her head tilted slightly to one side, eyes half closed, listening to a low-priority signal loop. Navigation was unattended. Autopilot handled course corrections better than any human could at this range. Everything was in order. Everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. At 4 o'clock, the scanner made a sound. It wasn't loud. It wasn't urgent. It was a soft, single tone, barely more than a suggestion of sound, indicating a minor detection at the outer edge of long-range sensors. Eris did not react immediately. Minor detections happened all the time. Dust clusters. Radiation spikes. Instrument echoes that resolved themselves if you waited long enough. He let it sit. 3 seconds passed. Then 5. Then 10. The tone came again. Eris blinked once and leaned forward slightly, not quickly, not with concern, just enough to bring the outer grid into sharper focus. There was a mark. Positioned at the very edge of sensor reach, where resolution dropped and data became less reliable. He looked at it. Then he looked away. Then he looked back. It was still there. That, by itself, was not unusual. What was unusual was that it had not faded. Most edge detections dissolved after a few seconds as the system corrected for noise. This one remained, steady and consistent, as if it belonged exactly where it was. Eris rested his fingers lightly on the console, not entering any commands yet. He watched. The mark did not flicker. It did not shift. It simply existed, a small, quiet point at the boundary between what the station could see clearly and what it could not. The scanner tone sounded a 3rd time. So, patient. Waiting. Eris exhaled slowly through his nose and brought up the preliminary identification overlay. Routine, he told himself. This was routine. Something at the edge of the grid. Something that would resolve into nothing. He had seen this before. Not exactly this, but things like it. He focused on the mark again, studying its position relative to the sector boundary line, a thin, faint divider that separated monitored space from the unmonitored dark beyond. The mark sat directly on that line. Not inside. Not outside. Exactly on it. Eris frowned slightly. That was less common. Objects drifted across boundaries all the time, but they rarely paused on them. Motion carried things forward. Momentum didn't usually allow for precision. He adjusted the zoom. The mark held its position. The scanner did not classify it. No preliminary tag. No automated guess. Just the mark. And the soft tone, repeating at measured intervals, as if the system was gently reminding him that something existed where nothing had been a moment before. Eris let his hand hover over the console. He could run a full query. He could flag it for review. He could ignore it for another minute and see if it resolved on its own. All three options were acceptable under protocol. He waited. Because waiting cost nothing. Because most things out here resolve themselves if you gave them time. Because the universe, in his experience, preferred to make sense if you didn't rush it. Another 10 seconds passed. The mark remained. Unchanged. Unmoving. Exactly where it had first appeared. Eris straightened slightly in his chair. Probably nothing, he said quietly, not to anyone in particular. His voice sounded normal. The station remained quiet. The stars continued doing what stars did. The mark stayed where it was. And the scanner, patient and precise, continued to notice it. Eris initiated the identification query. The command was simple. It always was. Every detectable object within sensor range was required, by design, by engineering, by decades of layered systems, to produce something recognizable. A signature. A classification. Even debris had patterns. Even noise had structure if you looked at it long enough. The system processed. A thin progress line appeared at the bottom of the display, moving steadily from left to right. Eris watched it without blinking. He had run this query thousands of times. He knew how it behaved. He knew how long it took. He knew, with a quiet certainty, what the result should be. The progress line reached the end. The result field populated. And then stopped. Eris frowned. Not sharply. Not dramatically. Just enough for the expression to register as something slightly out of alignment with the rest of his face. The classification field was empty. Not unknown. Not error. Not insufficient data. Empty. A blank space where information should have been. Eris stared at it for a moment. Then he leaned back slightly, as if changing his angle might change what he was seeing. It didn't. He tapped the console once, bringing up the raw data feed behind the classification layer. Signal strength, stable. Mass estimate, present, but imprecise. Energy signature, consistent. Position, unchanged. Everything was there. Everything was being read correctly. The system simply wasn't naming it. Eris exhaled slowly. Okay, he said under his breath. There was a procedure for this. There was always a procedure. Step 1. Assume operator error. He cleared the query and ran it again. The progress line moved. The system processed. The result field populated. Exactly the same. Eris glanced briefly over his shoulder, instinctively checking if anyone else had noticed. Lyra was still at her station, eyes on her own display, unaware or unconcerned. No need to escalate yet. Step 2. Assume system fault. He opened the diagnostic panel. Internal sensors, operational. Data relay, stable. Classification algorithm, active, no faults detected. Registry link, connected. Everything was green. Everything was functioning exactly as it should. Eris let the diagnostic panel linger for a moment longer than necessary. Then he closed it. System's fine, he murmured, which meant he didn't finish the thought. Instead, he pulled up the registry manually. The central classification registry contained millions of entries. Ships, debris patterns, natural phenomena, artificial constructs, things that had names and things that only had numbers. If something existed within monitored space, it was in there. Eris selected the raw data from the mark and fed it directly into the registry search. The system accepted the input. Processing began. This took longer. It always did when bypassing the surface filters. 10 seconds. 20. 30. Eris felt his fingers press lightly into the edge of the console. At 32 seconds, The system returned a result. The result field opened and displayed nothing. No matches. No closest approximations. No, did you mean? Just the same blank space. Eris stared at it. His mind moved through possibilities quickly now, but not chaotically. Ordered. Trimmed. Unregistered vessel. Sensor artifact. Unknown natural formation. Data corruption. Each possibility placed neatly into position. Each one examined. Each one, not fitting. He leaned forward again, closer this time. The mark was still there. Same position. Same intensity. No drift. No fluctuation. It was behaving like an object. A real object. But it had no classification. Eris rested both hands on the console. Okay, he said again, a little quieter this time. Step 3, verify independently. He split the sensor feed across 2 separate processing channels, isolating the data streams so they would run through different internal paths. If there was corruption, this would expose it. If there was interference, it would show inconsistencies. The 2 feeds processed side by side. The results appeared simultaneously. Both blank. Identical. Perfectly consistent in their lack of answer. Eris felt something shift in his chest. Not fear. Not yet. Something closer to a resistance. The kind that appears when a system you trust refuses to behave the way it always has. He looked back at the mark. It hadn't moved. It hadn't changed. It simply existed, quietly occupying a place where, according to every system he relied on, something should have been explainable. The scanner tone sounded again. So, patient. Almost polite. Eris hovered his hand over the console, then finally tapped the tracking command. A thin vector line extended from the mark. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the system calculated trajectory. Eris watched the line form. It didn't arc. It didn't drift. It didn't scatter into probabilistic paths the way uncertain objects usually did. It drew a single, straight line. Direct. Precise. From the mark to the station. Eris didn't move. He read the vector again. Then again, slower. Same result. No deviation. No uncertainty. A direct approach path. He sat back in his chair, the movement small but deliberate. There were still explanations. There were always explanations. Objects drifted. Trajectories aligned. Coincidences happened. He knew that. He believed that. But he looked at the blank classification field. Then at the perfectly straight line pointing toward him. Then back at the mark, still sitting exactly on the boundary line like it had chosen that position instead of arriving there by chance. The scanner tone sounded again. This time, Eris didn't ignore it. He reached for the console. And then, for the first time since the shift began, he opened a channel to internal command. His voice, when it came, was controlled. Lieutenant Ven to supervisory, he said. I have a contact at the outer boundary. A brief pause. Then more carefully, is not resolving. He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. The mark remained on the edge of the grid. The classification field remained empty. And the line, thin and certain, continued to point directly at the station. The response from supervisory came faster than expected. Supervisory receiving, the voice said, filtered through the station's internal channel. Awake. Define, not resolving, Lieutenant. Eris glanced once more at the screen before answering. Object present at outer boundary, he said. Stable signal. Full data return. Classification field is blank. Registry search returns no match. The pause. Not long. Just long enough to mean the person on the other end was checking something themselves. Run system diagnostics, the voice said. Already completed, Eris replied. All systems green. Another pause. This one slightly longer. Maintain observation, the voice said. Do not escalate further yet. Log the anomaly and continue monitoring. Understood. The channel closed. Eris didn't move for a moment. That was expected. That was exactly how this was supposed to go. Unusual, but not urgent. Observe first. Escalate later. He returned his full attention to the scan grid. The mark was still there. Unchanged. Unmoved. The vector lines still pointed directly at the station. Eris tapped a secondary overlay, pulling up time-stamped tracking data. The system began recording positional changes down to fractional increments. He watched the numbers. Nothing. No drift. No fluctuation. No jitter. It held position with a precision that felt deliberate. He didn't like that word. He replaced it. Stable, he told himself. Just stable. Anything interesting? Lyra's voice came from behind him, casual, not looking up from her station. Eris hesitated for half a second. Minor anomaly, he said. Outer grid. Debris. Probably. She nodded once, satisfied, and went back to her signal loop. The station settled again into its quiet rhythm. Eris watched the clock. 4:07. 9 minutes since the first tone. He let his eyes drift briefly across the rest of the grid. Nothing else had changed. Everything remained exactly as it should be. Except the scanner tone sounded again. Eris looked back immediately. The mark had moved. Not much. Barely enough to notice without the tracking overlay. But the system noticed. It always did. A new position registered. Fractionally closer. Eris leaned forward, his posture tightening just slightly. He pulled up the positional comparison. Previous coordinates. Current coordinates. The difference was minimal. But it existed. He didn't speak. He didn't call supervisory again. He simply watched. Another 30 seconds passed. The mark held. Another shift. Same direction. Same line. Closer. Eris swallowed once, slowly. Okay, he said under his breath. He expanded the vector projection. The line adjusted automatically. Still straight. Still precise. Still pointed directly at the station. There was no drift. No variation. No external influence visible in the data. It wasn't being pulled. It wasn't being pushed. It was choosing a path. Eris stopped that thought immediately. Objects don't choose, he told himself. Objects follow forces. This is force. This is physics. This is explainable. He zoomed in further. The mark grew slightly larger on the display, resolving just enough to confirm what the data already suggested. It wasn't dispersing. It wasn't breaking apart. It was maintaining shape. Maintaining trajectory. Maintaining intent. He stopped again. Reframed. Maintaining course. That was the correct term. He tapped the console, pulling up speed estimates. Very low. Not drifting speed. Not inertial carry. Controlled movement. Slow enough to feel patient. The scanner tone sounded again. This time, Eris didn't wait. Supervisory, he said, reopening the channel. Contact has changed position. How? The voice asked immediately. Minimal shift, Eris said. Consistent vector. Now registering movement along projected trajectory. Speed. Low. Controlled. The pause. Is it accelerating? No. Is it maneuvering? Eris looked at the data again. No, he said. Then, after a fraction of a second, not visibly. Another pause. Longer now. Define that, the voice said. Eris exhaled quietly. It's not adjusting course, he said. It's already on one. Silence. Continue observation. I'm notifying senior oversight. The channel closed. Eris sat back slowly in his chair. That was the shift. He recognized it. The moment something moved from routine anomaly to something else. Not an emergency. Not yet. But no longer ignorable. Behind him, Lyra had turned slightly in her seat. Movement? She asked. Eris nodded once. Yeah. She watched him for a second, then turned back to her console, but not fully this time. Her posture had changed, subtle, but present. Awareness spreading. The mark moved again. Closer. Still slow. Still steady. Still on the same line. Eris brought up a time-lapse projection. If the movement continued at this rate, the system calculated. A soft estimate appeared on the screen. Time to intercept range. 3 hours, 12 minutes. Eris read it twice. Then once more, slower. 3 hours. Not immediate. Not urgent. but inevitable. He looked at the mark, then at the empty classification field, then at the line connecting it to the station like a quiet, unbroken promise. Probably still nothing, he said. This time, the words felt less certain. The scanner tone sounded again. The mark kept coming. Senior Oversight Officer Cale Dravin did not like being woken during night rotation. He liked it even less when the reason was described as not resolving. He entered the observation deck exactly 3 minutes after supervisory escalation, fully dressed, fully awake, and visibly unimpressed. Report, he said. He did not sit. Eris stood automatically. Unidentified contact at outer boundary, he said. Stable signal, no classification, no registry match. Movement confirmed. Direct trajectory towards station. Dravin stepped past him without acknowledging the summary and leaned slightly over the console. Show me. Eris shifted aside. The display expanded under Dravin's touch, pulling up raw data, overlay vectors, classification logs, and registry outputs in a layered stack. Dravin scanned it quickly. His eyes moved the way experienced officers' eyes moved, not searching but verifying. He checked the classification field first. He checked the registry output. He checked the diagnostic logs. All green. He tapped the console once, bringing up the raw signal data. Run the query, he said. Eris hesitated for a fraction of a second. I already did, he said. Dravin didn't look at him. Run it again. Eris executed the command. The system processed. The progress line moved. The result appeared. Dravin watched it without expression. Then he ran it himself. Same input. Same system. Same result. He rested one hand on the edge of the console, fingers flat against the surface. For a moment, he didn't say anything. Eris watched him carefully. This was the part where senior officers usually corrected something. Misinterpretation. Misread data. A small error that restored everything to order. That didn't happen. Dravin opened the registry manually, bypassing standard filters the same way Eris had. He fed in the raw data. The system processed longer this time. 30 seconds. 32. Result. Dravin leaned back slightly. That's not right, he said. It wasn't a question. Eris said nothing. Dravin turned his attention to the mark itself. Zoom. Eris adjusted the display. The mark sharpened slightly. Still indistinct. Still small. Still present. Dravin studied its position relative to the boundary line. Then he brought up the movement log. Play it back. Eris initiated the short-range time replay. The mark appeared at the boundary. Then shifted. Then shifted again. Each movement small. Each one aligned perfectly with the same trajectory. No deviation. No correction. No randomness. Dravin's eyes narrowed slightly. Run vector projection. Already active. Eris highlighted it. The line extended cleanly from the mark to the station. Dravin followed it with his gaze. 3 hours? He asked. 3 hours, 9 minutes now, Eris said. Dravin nodded once. He didn't look concerned. He didn't look calm either. He looked attentive, which Eris realized was worse. Dravin reached out and split the sensor feed, running it through a secondary analysis channel, one that operated on a different internal logic system. Independent verification, he said, almost to himself. The second system processed. Its result appeared. Dravin exhaled slowly. 2 systems, he said. 2 independent paths. Same result. He tapped the console again, pulling up environmental interference readings. Radiation levels, nominal. Gravitational distortions, none. Signal interference, negligible. Nothing external influencing the data. Nothing distorting the reading. He straightened. Object is real, he said. Again, not a question. Eris felt something tighten slightly in his chest. Hearing it said out loud changed something. It moved the situation from uncertain to defined. Dravin turned slightly, looking at Lyra. Communications, any passive signals from the contact? She checked quickly. Nothing active, she said. No transponder, no beacon, no broadcast. Draven nodded. Then back to Eris. Speed. Low, Eris said. Consistent. Acceleration. None. Course adjustment? No. Draven looked back at the screen. It doesn't drift, he said. Eris didn't answer. Because that was exactly the problem. Draven rested both hands on the console now, mirroring the position Eris had taken earlier without realizing it. He watched the mark for several seconds. The scanner tone sounded again. The mark shifted. Closer. Draven's gaze followed the movement. Timing is consistent, he said. Yes, sir. Intervals are regular. Yes, sir. Which means it's not random. Eris didn't respond. Draven didn't look at him when he spoke again. It's controlled. The words settled into the room quietly. Not dramatic. Not loud. But final. Behind them, Lyra turned fully in her seat now. Controlled how? She asked. Draven didn't answer immediately. He zoomed the display further, pushing the sensors to their limit. The mark resolved slightly more. Enough to confirm shape retention. Enough to confirm cohesion. Enough to confirm. This is not debris, Draven said. Silence. Eris felt it before he fully understood it. The shift. The line being crossed. Draven turned his head slightly towards supervisory comms. Escalate to command-level oversight, he said. Now. Already in process, the system replied. Draven nodded once. Then, after a brief pause. Wake the commander. That changed everything. Eris felt it immediately. Not in the room. In himself. The quiet night rotation. The routine. The assumption that this was still manageable at a low level. Gone. Replaced by something sharper. Draven looked back at the screen. The mark moved again. Closer. Still slow. Still steady. Still on that same impossible, perfectly straight line. No registration, Draven said. No classification. No signal. He paused. Then added quietly. And it knows exactly where it's going. Eris didn't ask how he knew that. Because he could see it. The line didn't waver. The object didn't hesitate. It had chosen a direction. And it had not changed it once. The scanner tone sounded again. The mark kept coming. And for the first time since the shift began, the station no longer felt like a place where nothing happened. Commander Elian Rowe arrived without announcement. The door to the observation deck opened quietly, and he stepped in with the controlled efficiency of someone who had already been awake, already been informed, and had already decided this mattered. Report, he said. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Draven straightened slightly. Unidentified contact at boundary, he said. No classification, no registry match, confirmed movement, direct trajectory toward station. Rowe moved to the console. He didn't look at Eris. He didn't look at Lyra. He looked at the data. Show me everything. Eris expanded the display fully. Layers unfolded across the screen. Raw sensor input, trajectory projection, signal analysis, registry queries, diagnostic logs. Rowe took it in quickly. Then more slowly. He checked the classification field. He checked the registry. He didn't comment on it. Instead he said, full sensor sweep. Eris hesitated. Already running standard. Not standard, Rowe said. Everything. Eris nodded. Running full spectrum scan. The system shifted modes. Power redistributed. Secondary sensors came online. Deep range analysis engaged. The station systems began pulling data from every available channel: thermal, electromagnetic, gravitational, mass density, radiation variance. The kind of scan you didn't run for debris. The kind you ran when something needed to be understood. Or contained. The first results came in within seconds. Mass reading stabilizing, Eris said. Mid-range object. Not fragmentary. Shape. Inconclusive at this range, but consistent. Energy output? Eris checked. Present, he said. Low, but steady. Rowe nodded slightly. Keep going. More data streamed in. Thermal signature. But not absent. Electromagnetic emissions. Irregular. Not random. Structured. But not identifiable. Eris felt his focus narrowing, tightening around the incoming data. Each new piece should have helped. It didn't. Composition? Ro asked. Eris waited. The system processed. Then returned. Mixed readings, Eris said slowly. Primary structure metallic. Secondary layers inconsistent. Inconsistent how? Different densities, Eris said. Different reflective properties. Not uniform. Draven leaned in slightly. Damage. Eris shook his head. Doesn't read like damage. More like additions. Additions, Draven repeated. Eris nodded. Layers applied after initial structure. Ro didn't react. Engine signature, he said. Eris pulled it up. This took longer. The system hesitated. Not failing. Just taking time. Then the data appeared. Eris stared at it. That's not standard, he said. Define not standard. Eris leaned closer. It's producing thrust, he said. Consistent output. But the waveform. He paused. It doesn't match any known drive pattern. Draven frowned. Fusion. Closest match, Eris said. But modified. Output efficiency doesn't align with expected limits. Ro's eyes remained on the screen. Meaning? Eris exhaled slowly. Meaning it's doing more than it should be able to do with what it has. A quiet settled over the room. More data arrived. Any weapon systems? Ro asked. Eris checked the scan. Scanning. The system swept across the object's surface, searching for mounting points, energy concentrations, targeting arrays. The result came back. None detected. Draven looked at him. None. Eris shook his head. No weapon signatures. No active systems. No dormant systems either. Ro didn't move. Confirm. Eris ran a secondary scan. Then a third. All results identical. No weapons, he said again. That should have been reassuring. It wasn't. Ro shifted slightly. Stealth systems? Negative. Shielding? None detected. Draven let out a quiet breath. No weapons. No stealth. No shielding, he said. And it's still coming. No one responded. Because that was the part that didn't fit. Ro looked at the data again. Internal structure, he said. Eris hesitated. Resolution is limited at this range. Run it. Eris executed the command. The scan penetrated as far as it could. Data returned in fragments. Partial layouts. Inconsistent readings. Eris felt his brow tighten. That's strange. Ro didn't look away from the screen. Explain. Eris swallowed once. Internal mass distribution isn't optimized, he said. There's in-use space. Irregular compartment layouts. Cargo vessel? Draven suggested. Possibly, Eris said. Mass supports it. Ro nodded slightly. Cargo contents? Unknown, Eris said. Too dense in sections. Too diffuse in others. More data came through. This time from environmental sensors. Lyra leaned forward at her station. Commander, she said. Ro glanced at her. Report. She looked uncertain. Picking up low-level atmospheric readings, she said. Draven frowned. Atmospheric. Yes, Lyra said. Trace moisture. Oxygen variance. Circulation patterns. Eris turned. That's not possible, he said. Not in open space, Lyra agreed. But the readings are coming from inside the object. The pause. Ro looked back at the internal scan. Localized environment, he said. Pressurized, Lyra confirmed. Sustained. Eris felt something shift again. Another piece. Another contradiction. A ship, if it was a ship, with no weapons, no stealth, irregular structure, and an internal environment. Draven spoke quietly. Life support. Eris nodded. Yes. Ro stood still for a long moment. Broadcast analysis. Lyra switched channels. Still no active transmission, she said. No identification signal. She paused. Wait. Ro looked at her. What? She adjusted her console, isolating a faint background reading. There's something, she said. Low-frequency emission. Very weak. Natural? Draven asked. Lyra shook her head slowly. No, she said. It's structured. Eris turned fully now. Structured how? Lyra hesitated. Repeating pattern, she said. Rhythmic. The room went quiet. Ro's voice remained level. Amplify it. Lyra increased the gain. Filtered noise. Isolated the signal. For a moment, there was nothing. Faint. Distant. Not static. Not data bursts. Something else. A sequence. A pattern. Rising. Falling. Repeating. Eris felt the hairs on his arms lift slightly. What is that? Draven asked. Lyra didn't answer immediately. She adjusted the filter again. The sound became clearer. Not clearer in meaning. Clearer in shape. It's not encoded data, she said slowly. Then what is it? Lyra listened for another few seconds. Then said quietly, It's audio. Eris blinked. Audio. Yes. Ro's gaze didn't shift. Define. Lyra hesitated. But it sounds like music. Silence. No one spoke. The faint sound continued through the speakers. So, structured. Intentional. Not a signal meant to communicate information. A signal meant to be heard. Draven stared at the console. A vessel, he said slowly, with no weapons, no registry, no classification. He stopped. Because the rest of the sentence didn't make sense. Ro finished it anyway. Approaching a command station, he said, while broadcasting music. The scanner tone sounded again. The mark moved. Closer. Still steady. Still certain. Eris looked at the data. At the empty classification field. At the impossible engine readings. At the internal atmosphere. At the sound filling the room. More information. More detail. More clarity. And less understanding than before. Archive cross-reference, Commander Ro said. No one moved for half a second. Because that meant something very specific. They weren't just looking at the object anymore. They were looking for context. History. Pattern. Meaning. Eris recovered first. Running cross-reference, he said. The system linked outward. Beyond local registry. Beyond standard classification. Into deep archive records, older files, incomplete files, things that had not been relevant enough to organize properly. The kind of data you only accessed when something didn't fit anywhere else. Filter parameters? Eris asked. Ro didn't hesitate. Unknown vessel. Non-compliant identification. Non-hostile configuration. Atypical behavior patterns. The pause. Then more precisely. Include cultural transmission anomalies. Lyra glanced at him. Music, she said. Ro didn't look at her. Yes. The system processed. Slower this time. Archive searches always were. They weren't built for speed. They were built for completeness. Data began to surface. Fragments at first. Disconnected. Uncertain. Eris scanned through them. Most were irrelevant. Sensor ghosts. Old debris patterns. Misidentified natural phenomena. He filtered. Refined. Narrowed. Commander, he said quietly. Ro stepped closer. Show me. Eris highlighted a cluster of records. Poorly categorized. Partially incomplete. Multiple entries, Eris said. Low-priority observation logs. External species monitoring. Which species? Eris hesitated. Human. The room stilled. Draven frowned. Humans, he said. They're still classified as low-development observers. Yes, sir, Eris said. Preliminary interstellar capability. Minimal expansion. Passive monitoring status. Ro said nothing. Bring it up, he said. The display shifted. A small blue-green planet appeared in the center. Data wrapped around it. Population estimates, atmospheric composition, technological progression markers. Designation, Sol 3, Eris said. Local name, Earth. Lyra leaned slightly forward. I thought they weren't a factor yet, she said. They weren't, Draven said. Ro's voice cut through quietly. Defined weren't. Eris scrolled. Records are incomplete, he said. Most recent comprehensive update, 11 years old. Ro's expression didn't change. Continue. Eris pulled up behavioral summaries. This is where it gets, he paused, searching for the word, dense. Summarize, Ro said. Eris nodded. Human civilization displays high rates of internal conflict, he said. Documented history shows continuous large-scale warfare. How large-scale? Draven asked. Eris brought up a timeline. It filled the screen. There's almost no empty space. Significant conflicts exceeding 10,000 casualties, over 200 documented, Eris said. Partial records only. Lyra stared at it. That's constant, she said. Yes, Eris said. Ro's gaze remained fixed on the display. Continue. Eris pulled up another section. Technological development includes advanced weapon systems, he said. At one point, multiple factions developed planet-ending capabilities simultaneously. Silence. Draven spoke first. They destroyed themselves? Eris shook his head. No. How? Eris read directly now. They maintained mutual threat states for extended periods, he said. Deterrence-based equilibrium. Ro tilted his head slightly. They didn't use them, he said. Not fully, Eris said. Lyra frowned. That doesn't make sense, she said. If they had the capability. They chose not to, Eris said. Draven crossed his arms. Why? Eris hesitated. Records indicate individual intervention events, he said. Ro looked at him. Explain. Eris pulled up another file. Multiple documented incidents where escalation was prevented by a single individual overriding protocol, he said. Against orders. Against system recommendations. How many? Ro asked. At least 3 confirmed, Eris said. Possibly more. Draven let out a quiet breath. So their survival depended on individuals ignoring their own systems. Yes. Silence settled again. Not shocked this time. Calculating. Ro spoke softly. Continue. Eris brought up environmental data. They have also experienced multiple near-extinction events, he said. Self-inflicted and external. List them. Global weapon escalation, Eris said. Planetary pathogen outbreak. Atmospheric destabilization. Asteroid impact event. Lyra blinked. They survived all of those? Yes. How? Draven asked. Eris pulled up the asteroid file. They intercepted it, he said. With what? Draven asked. Eris paused. Their own ships. Ro's eyes narrowed slightly. Define intercepted. Eris didn't soften it. They physically engaged it, he said. Close-range intervention. Manual override after communication failure. Lyra shook her head slowly. They shouldn't have survived that. They barely did, Eris said. Ro looked back at the planet. Fragile-looking. Unremarkable. Continue, he said again. Eris hesitated this time. This part is different, he said. Continue, Ro repeated. Eris pulled up a psychological archive. Poorly indexed. Human behavioral studies, he said. Early analysis. He read. Observed pattern. Individuals form strong attachment to high-risk environments and scenarios. Draven frowned. Meaning? Eris continued. Subjects demonstrate tendency to engage with dangerous conditions voluntarily. Lyra looked confused. Why? Eris scrolled. Unclear, he said. Some records classify it as maladaptive behavior. Ro spoke quietly. Is it consistent? Eris nodded slowly. Yes, he said. Across multiple domains. Examples. Eris didn't look up. Exploration missions into hazardous zones, he said. Voluntary participation in conflict scenarios. Re-entry into previously harmful environments. He paused, then added, Cultural reinforcement through storytelling. Lyra glanced at the audio feed. The music, she said. Eris nodded. Yes. Ro looked at her. Analyze the audio pattern. Lyra pulled it up. Filtered. Translated as far as possible. It's narrative, she said slowly. Structured storytelling. Content. Lyra listened. Her expression shifted slightly. It's about a storm, she said. Draven frowned. A storm. Yes, Lyra said. A vessel at sea. Dangerous conditions. High probability of loss. Ro's voice remained steady. And? Lyra swallowed once. They go anyway. Silence. Eris felt it land. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just present. Ro looked back at the mark. Still moving. Still coming. Slow. Deliberate. Consistent. He spoke quietly. This behavior, he said. This pattern. He gestured slightly toward the screen. Is not theoretical. No one disagreed. Because the data matched. Because the history matched. Because the pattern matched the thing currently approaching them. Draven said it out loud. So whatever that is, he said, nodding toward the mark, it's acting like them. Ro didn't respond immediately. He watched the slow, steady movement. The straight line. The absence of hesitation. No, he said. The pause. Then more precisely. It's not acting like them. Another pause. It is them. The scanner tone sounded again. The mark moved. Closer. Still steady. Still certain. And now, for the first time, they had a pattern that explained it. Which made it worse. No one spoke for several seconds. Not because they didn't have anything to say. Because they were all thinking the same thing. And none of them wanted to be the first to say it wrong. The faint music continued through the speakers. So, steady. Unbothered. As if it had no awareness of the room it now occupied. As if it didn't care. Ro stood still, eyes on the projection of Earth. Then he turned slightly. Continue analysis, he said. Eris nodded, though his attention hadn't really left the data. There's one more section, he said. Ro looked at him. Relevant. Eris hesitated. Yes. Then say it. Eris pulled up the file. It wasn't a military report. Not a historical timeline. It was something else. Psychological classification study, he said. Human behavioral anomalies. Draven made a quiet sound. That sounds promising. Eris didn't react. He read. Observed phenomenon. Individuals exhibit attachment to sources of danger or stress. Lyra frowned. That's not unique, she said. Most species have. Eris shook his head. It's not that, he said. He scrolled. Then read again, more carefully. Attachment increases relative to perceived risk. The room went still. Draven's arms slowly uncrossed. Say that again, he said. Eris didn't need to look. The closer the danger, he said, the stronger the attachment. Silence. Lyra leaned forward. That's backwards, she said. Yes, Eris said. Draven looked at Ro. That's not adaptive, he said. That's a flaw. Ro didn't answer. Eris continued reading. Initial classification. Pathological response pattern. Recommended for further study. He stopped. Then scrolled further down. There's an addendum, he said. Read it, Ro said. Eris did. Extended observation indicates pattern is not isolated. Present across multiple cultural, historical, and behavioral domains. He paused. Reclassification uncertain. Another pause. Then quieter. Pattern may represent baseline human decision-making model rather than deviation. No one spoke. Because that changed everything. Lyra said it first. That means, she started, then stopped. Draven finished it. It's not a flaw, he said. Eris nodded slowly. It's how they work. The music shifted slightly. A rise. To fall. A return. Lyra listened. They knew they might not survive, she said softly. That's what the song is saying. Ro looked at her. And they went anyway. Yes. Another silence. He turned back to the screen. The mark moved again. Closer. Still slow. Still steady. Still on that same line. Draven spoke more quietly now. So this thing, he said, whatever it is, it's not ignoring the risk. No, Eris said. It understands it, Draven continued. Yes. And it's coming anyway. Eris didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because the data already had. Ro walked a few steps away from the console. Not pacing. Just moving. Thinking. For most species, he said, risk defines behavior. No one interrupted. If the risk is too high, he continued, they withdraw. The pause. They calculate survival probability and adjust accordingly. Draven nodded once. That's how it works. Ro looked back at the mark. And if they don't? No one answered. Because there wasn't a system for that. Ro said it anyway. They fail. The words sat in the air. Simple. Certain. For everything they understood. Except, he looked at the Earth projection again. At the dense timeline of conflict. At the extinction events. At the survival records. They didn't, he said. Lyra shook her head slightly. No, she said. Eris felt something settle into place. Not clarity. Not comfort. Understanding. They don't calculate the same way, he said. Draven looked at him. Then how do they calculate? Eris hesitated. They don't weigh danger against survival. The pause. Ro's voice was quiet. What do they weigh it against? Eris looked at the data. At the reports. At the pattern that kept repeating. What they think needs to happen. Silence. The music continued. Steady. Uninterrupted. Draven let out a slow breath. That's not a calculation, he said. No, Eris said. It's a decision. Ro nodded once. Precise. And once that decision is made, he said, the risk becomes irrelevant. Lyra looked at the mark again. Still coming. Then why broadcast? She asked. Why the music? Eris didn't answer. Ro did. So you know they're coming, he said. Draven frowned. That makes no tactical sense. No, Ro agreed. It doesn't. Another pause. Then quieter. Unless it's not tactical. The room settled around that idea. The music filled the space between them. Not aggressive. Not defensive. Not hidden. Lyra spoke again, almost to herself. They're not trying to avoid anything, she said. No, Ro said. They're not even trying to survive. That landed harder. Eris felt it. The shift. The realization. Draven said it slowly. Then what are they trying to do? Ro looked at the line on the screen. The straight, unbroken path. Then at the mark moving along it. Then at the empty classification field. Then back at the data. All of it points to one thing, he said. The pause. They're trying to arrive. The scanner tone sounded again. The mark moved. Closer. Still steady. Still certain. Still coming. No. They understood why. Time to visual range? Ro asked. Eris didn't look away from the screen. 14 minutes. Ro nodded once. Maintain full recording. The station shifted subtly. No alarms. No sudden movement. Just a quiet tightening. More stations lit up. More crew arrived, silent, alert, taking positions without being told. Word had spread. Something was coming. And nobody knew what it was. The music continued through the speakers. So, steady. Unchanged. Eris found himself listening to it now, even while watching the scan grid. He didn't understand it. But he could feel its shape. A rise. A fall. A return. Like something repeating on purpose. Optical sensors ready, Lyra said. Ro stepped forward slightly. Bring it up the moment it resolves. Yes, Commander. The countdown wasn't spoken. But everyone felt it. The mark moved. Closer. Closer. Close. There, Lyra said. The main screen shifted. At first, nothing changed. Just stars. Darkness. Distance. A shape. Not dramatic. Not sudden. Something that hadn't been visible a moment ago now separating itself from the background. Like a shadow deciding to exist. Eris leaned forward without realizing it. Enhance, Rose said. The image sharpened. Slowly. Patiently. The shape grew clearer. Edges forming. Contours defining. Not sleek. Not sharp. No. Draven spoke first. That's not a warship. No one disagreed. Because it wasn't. Even at this distance, the difference was obvious. Warships had a presence. A design language. Angles meant for speed. Lines meant for threat. This had none of that. It was wide. Heavy-looking. Built without elegance. Built without concern for appearance. Built to carry. Freighter, Eris said quietly. Ro didn't respond. Zoom further. The image tightened. Details emerged. Surface texture. Color. Imperfections. Eris felt his breath slow. The hull wasn't smooth. It wasn't uniform. It was patched, Lyra said. That was the word. Sections of the ship were different. Different shades. Different materials. Different ages. Each patch slightly misaligned with the one next to it. Not careless. Just practical. Repairs. Layered over time. Draven leaned closer. That ship has been rebuilt, he said. More than once, Eris added. The image sharpened further. Now the structure was clear. Large central body. Extended cargo sections. External framework visible in places where plating didn't quite match. Functional. Nothing wasted on aesthetics. Everything built for purpose. Mass matches, Eris said. Cargo vessel classification, if it had one. Ro's eyes remained fixed on the screen. Confirm internal readings. Eris checked. Consistent, he said. Cargo present. Distribution irregular. Lyra spoke again. Atmospheric readings confirmed, she said. Internal environment stable. Draven frowned. Show me where. Eris highlighted the section. Upper dorsal structure. Space where. He paused. Then adjusted the scan. Enhanced it. Refined it. The image clarified. And then. Silence. Lyra said it first. That's. She stopped. Draven finished it. That's not cargo. It wasn't. The section where a ship of this size would normally mount defensive systems. Weapon arrays. Hardpoints. Targeting systems. Was gone. Replaced. Filled with something else. Green. Structured. Layered. Growing. Eris stared at it. Plants, he said. The word felt strange in the room. Draven blinked. Confirm. Eris ran the scan again. Same result. Photosynthetic activity detected, he said. Moisture systems. Circulation. Light arrays. Lyra whispered. They took out the weapons. No one finished the sentence. Because they could all see the rest. And put in a garden. The music continued. So, steady. The ship kept coming. Slower now. Not stopping. But adjusting. As if approaching. As if arriving. Rose spoke quietly. Reduce magnification, he said. The image widened slightly. Enough to take in the whole ship again. The patches. The uneven plating. The greenhouse. The quiet, steady motion. Markings, Eris said. Ro looked. Along the forward hull. Faded. But visible. Human script. Lyra engaged translation. The system processed. Briefly. Then displayed the result. Eris read it once. Then again. Slower. The words sat there. Simple. Unadorned. And somehow heavier than anything else they had seen. Ro read them aloud. Path. Reasonable. Option. Silence. The music shifted again. That same pattern. Rising. Falling. Returning. Draven exhaled slowly. That's what they named it, he said. Ro didn't respond. He was looking at the ship. At the greenhouse. At the patches. At the absence of weapons. At the straight line it had followed all the way here. Eris felt it click. The pattern. The behavior. The data. The philosophy. All of it. This was not the first choice. This was what came after everything else failed. Lyra said it quietly. If this is their reasonable option. She didn't finish. She didn't need to. Because everyone in the room reached the same conclusion at the same time. What they chose before this must have been something else entirely. The ship slowed again. Closer now. Close enough that the imperfections were no longer abstract. They were real, visible, countable. 17 distinct patches across the hull. 17 moments where something had gone wrong and been fixed. Eris found himself counting them again. 17. 17 times it had almost failed. And didn't. The music continued. Unchanged. Uninterrupted. As if none of this. The station. The war-capable systems. The silent, watching crew. As if none of it mattered. Rose spoke. Quiet. Controlled. Status. Eris answered automatically. Object within controlled space, he said. No hostile signatures. No evasive action. Maintaining approach. Draven added. No response to hails. Clear. Signal unchanged. Still broadcasting. Ro nodded once. It came through 13 defense markers, he said. Eris blinked. The realization hit him fully. The defensive grid. The station's perimeter. Every ship. Every system. Everything that should have made something hesitate. It hadn't. It hadn't even slowed until it chose to. Ro looked at the ship. At the name. At the greenhouse. At the path it had taken. Then, very quietly, it saw all of this. The pause. And it came anyway. The scanner tone sounded one more time. So, patient. But no longer uncertain. The mark was no longer a mark. It was a ship. A real one. Visible. Present. And still coming. Open a channel. The words came from Ro without hesitation. No one questioned it. Because there was nothing left to analyze. Only something to understand. All frequencies, he added. Including the one they're using. Lyra moved immediately. Channel open, she said. Broadcasting. The music continued. Unchanged. Uninterrupted. It filled the bridge. So, steady. Almost patient. Eris watched the ship on the screen. It had slowed further now. Not stopping. But no longer closing distance aggressively. Holding. Waiting. As if it had reached the point it needed to reach. As if it knew this was where the conversation would happen. Repeat hail, Ro said. Lyra transmitted. This is Commander Elian Ro of Station K-17. Unidentified vessel, you are within controlled space. Respond to this channel. The words went out clean. Precise. Formal. Correct. The music continued. No interruption. No acknowledgement. Just the same pattern. Rising. Falling. Returning. Draven exhaled quietly. They're ignoring us. Ro didn't respond. Again, he said. Lyra repeated the transmission. Same result. Nothing. Eris felt the tension shift. Not sharper. Stranger. Like they were doing something slightly wrong, and didn't yet know what. Ro watched the screen for a long moment. Stop transmitting. Lyra blinked. Sir? Stop, he repeated. She did. The channel remained open. But silent. No outgoing signal. The music. For a few seconds, that was all there was. The station. The ship. The dark between them. And the sound. A small noise. So, physical. Not part of the music. Something being set down. The cup. A container. Something real. Eris felt his focus sharpen instantly. The channel was live. This wasn't transmission noise. This was environment. A voice. Yeah, it said. Go ahead. The room froze. Not loud. Not formal. Not structured. A voice. Human. Rough at the edges. Tired in a way that sat underneath the words instead of on top of them. Ro didn't speak immediately. Because nothing about that opening matched protocol. No identification. No structure. It sounded like someone answering a call they had been expecting. He adjusted. This is Commander Elian Ro, he said. You are approaching a controlled station without identification. State your designation. The pause. Then the voice again. I know, she said. Just that. Simple. Unapologetic. Eris felt something shift again. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't ignorance. This was awareness. Ro continued. You have not responded to standard hails. You are in violation of multiple. 17, the voice said. Silence. Ro stopped. The voice continued, calm, almost conversational. 17 violations, she said. I counted. Border entry, unregistered vessel, communication protocol, a few technical ones. A faint sound in the background. Movement. Maybe chewing. Eris glanced at Lyra. She was staring at the console. She knows, Lyra whispered. Ro's voice remained steady. You're familiar with our protocols. I read what I could find, she said. Not all of it's public. But enough. The pause. I'm not here to argue about that. That landed differently. Direct. Focused. Ro adjusted. Then explain why you're here. Silence. Not empty. Not hesitant. Just a moment where the other side decided what mattered. When she spoke again, something in her voice had shifted. Still calm. Still flat. But anchored. My name is Mara Ilias, she said. Captain of the last reasonable option. Eris felt the name hit again. He hadn't realized how much weight it carried until now. I'm carrying medical supplies, she continued. Water filtration systems. Seed stock. Field equipment. She paused briefly. Full manifest is transmitting now. Lyra's console lit up. Receiving data, she said. Structured. Standard format. Ro glanced at it, then back to the channel. Destination, he asked. Another small sound. Movement. Verif Colony. The room went still. Eris knew the name. Everyone did. A quiet place. A stable place. Place that? Ro spoke. That colony is under quarantine. I know. You are not authorized to approach. I know. No resistance. No argument. Just acknowledgement. Ro narrowed his eyes slightly. Then why continue? Silence. Longer this time. Not uncertainty. Something else. When she spoke again, the words came slower. Not because she didn't know them. Because she had already decided them. Because there are people there, she said. The pause. Ro didn't interrupt. They had 43,006 years ago, she continued. Now they have maybe 12. Eris felt his chest tighten. The number sat there. Heavy. Where did you get that data? Ro asked. I'm not telling you that, she said. Someone risked something to get it to me. No defensiveness. Just fact. Ro let it go. The quarantine exists for a reason, he said. Yeah, she said. It does. The pause. But 6 years is a long time to let people disappear. Silence. No one on the bridge moved. No one spoke. Ro said carefully. There are processes for this. I know, she said. Another small pause. I tried them. The words were simple, but they carried something behind them. Ro didn't speak. She continued. 3 requests, she said. 2 years. Committees. Reviews. Delays. A faint exhale. I know how that goes. Eris felt something in that sentence. Not anger. Not frustration. Something quieter. More final. I've got supplies that won't last forever, she said. Medicine that expires. Equipment that matters now. Another pause. And I've got a number I can't ignore. The bridge was completely silent. Even the hum of the station felt distant. Ro spoke softly. Why you? It wasn't protocol. It wasn't procedure. It was a real question. And it landed. There was a shift on the other end of the channel. Not in sound. In presence. When she answered, her voice didn't change much. It didn't need to. I don't know, she said. The pause. Somebody had to go. Another pause. Barely there. So I went. Nothing followed. No explanation. No justification. No attempt to make it bigger than it was. Just the thing itself. Standing there. Unmovable. Unarguable. Eris felt it hit. Not like noise. Like weight. Everything they had analyzed. Everything they had calculated. Everything they understood about risk. Collapsed against that one sentence. Draven looked down at the console. Lyra had stopped typing. Even Ro didn't speak immediately, because there was nothing to correct, nothing to challenge, nothing to process through protocol. A decision that had already been made. The music, still playing quietly in the background, seemed different now. Not strange. Not foreign. Familiar. Like it had been explaining this the whole time. Ro finally spoke. Quiet. Controlled. Hold your position, he said. The pause. Give me 1 hour. Silence on the channel. Okay, she said. Just that. No negotiation. No hesitation. Ro nodded once. Hold position, he repeated. The channel stayed open for a moment longer. Then closed. The music continued. So, steady. Unchanged. The ship remained where it was. Waiting. Not because it had to. Because it chose to. Commander Ro did not look at anyone. He turned back to his console and began working. No hesitation. No discussion. No announcement. Just action. Documentation interface, he said. The system responded instantly. Open. Eris watched the screen shift. Forms. Fields. Structured inputs. The kind of system designed to slow decisions down by forcing them to be correct. Ro began filling them in. Unknown vessel. No registry match. Non-hostile configuration. Human origin. Humanitarian cargo. His hands moved steadily. Precise. Deliberate. As if this were no different than any other report. As if the decision had already been made the moment he heard the words. Section override request, he said. The system paused. The override clause requires justification. Ro didn't stop typing. Imminent humanitarian risk, he said. Define. Ro entered the numbers. 43,000, 12,000. Time projection. Decline curve. Estimated survivability window. The system processed. Justification accepted. Additional documentation required. Ro nodded once. Of course it is. He continued. Draven watched him for a moment. You're doing it, he said. Not a question. Ro didn't look up. Yes. Command will challenge this. Yes. Health Authority will file objections. Yes. They'll open a review. Yes. Each answer the same. Flat. Certain. Unchanged. Draven exhaled. And if they reverse it? Ro paused for the first time. Just a fraction. But they won't. Why? Ro finished the line he was typing. Because I'm doing it correctly. That was the difference. Not rebellion. Not defiance. Precision. System against itself. Eris felt it click. The same way the ship had. Different method. Same result. Do the thing that needs to be done. Ro continued writing. Forms. Reports. Authorizations. 16 total. Every one required. Every one completed. Every field filled. Nothing left open. Nothing left arguable. Time passed. No one spoke. The music continued. So, steady. The ship waited. Exactly 1 hour. At 5:12, Ro finished. He reviewed everything once. Then again. Then submitted. The system processed. Longer this time. Cross-checking. Verifying. Attempting to find fault. It didn't. Override approved, the system said. Temporary access granted. Silence. Ro opened the channel. Captain Ilias, he said. A small sound. Movement. Yeah. You are cleared to proceed, he said. Approach corridor will be transmitted. Follow it exactly. The pause. Understood. No celebration. No relief. Just acknowledgement. Like the decision had never been in doubt. Transmit full cargo verification upon arrival, Ro continued. Will do. Report within 72 hours. Sure. Another pause. Thanks, she said. Simple. Unadorned. Ro nodded once. The channel closed. The ship moved. Not fast. Not dramatic. Forward. Through the station's defensive perimeter. Through every system designed to stop something like it. And nothing fired. Nothing moved to intercept. Because nothing needed to. The last reasonable option passed through, carrying what it carried, doing what it had come to do. The music faded as distance increased. Not cut off, just becoming smaller, until it was gone. The first complaint arrived 12 hours later. Health Authority Oversight Division. Unauthorized procedural acceleration. Improper classification. Protocol deviation. Rowe read it, filed it, responded with citations. Precise. Footnoted. Unavoidable. The second complaint came from border compliance. 17 violations. Why were they not enforced? He answered that too. Correctly. Completely. The third came from administrative command. Why had he handled first contact personally? His answer was shorter. Because it required a decision. He sent it. Closed the file. Returned to duty. 3 weeks later, a transmission arrived. Not official. Not structured. Tagged manually for command review. Eris was the one who caught it. He recognized the origin code immediately. "Commander," he said. Rowe looked up. "Verif Colony." Rowe stepped forward. "Open it." The data resolved. Population count. Updated. 14,218. Trending upward. Medical stabilization confirmed. Water systems operational. Agriculture initiated. Eris read it twice. Then looked up. "They're recovering," he said. Rowe nodded once. No visible reaction. But he didn't look away from the number. Not immediately. 6 weeks later, analyst Lyra submitted a report. Human behavioral classification. Revised. Final line. Humans do not respond to risk by avoidance. They respond by necessity. Rowe read it, then added one line beneath it. Assume they are carrying something we need. He signed it, filed it. 3 months later, night rotation returned to normal. Quiet, still, routine. Eris sat at his station, watching the grid, watching nothing, doing his job, the way he always had. The scanner tone sounded so patient. He looked. A mark. Well, at the edge of the boundary. He didn't look away this time. He didn't wait. He pulled up the signal. There was faint, structured, familiar, music, different song, same shape. Eris leaned back slightly, looked at the empty classification field, then at the mark, then at the stars beyond it. He opened a report. Unregistered signal. Old frequency. Origin. Human. He paused at the threat assessment field. The place where you defined danger. Where you decided what something was. He thought about the last report. About the number. About the line Rowe had written. He left it blank. Instead, he typed. Signal is music. Recommend full translation. Recommend we listen. He submitted the report. The music continued. Out there. In the dark. On a frequency no one used anymore. Except them. Eris watched the mark. It hadn't moved yet. But he knew. It would. Eventually. And when it did, it wouldn't be because it was forced. It would be because somebody had to go. And they would. The scanner tone sounded again. So patient. And this time, he didn't think it meant nothing.